Hey everybody, it's Glenn back with another Clash Royale analysis video. Past couple days we've been breaking down the unbelievable set between Lince and Egor. This was to get into CRL West playoffs. Everything was on the line in this game right here. This is game number 3. If you missed the first two breakdowns, I have them in the notes. Let's talk about game number 3 right here. It turns out that both players ended up using the same lineup as they did in game number 2. As we see in game number 3, the usage and the interactions ended up being a little bit different. As the guys talked about in the broadcast, game number 1 ended up with a difference of 29 HP. Game number 2 ended up with 22 HP. So literally, one interaction could have been was likely the difference. As we see here, Miner gets played in the beginning with the Bandit. Royal Ghost stops that Night Witch, and Ewiz eats that up. So we have a Heal Spirit here, and Egor's been using 3 Musketeers, Royal Hogs, which I talked about in the previous videos, that is becoming more of a popular lineup recently, not just among the pros, but in ladder as well. We have a Bandit, and now we have a Miner being played on defense. So Miner's already been played twice, one on offense and one on defense. As we saw in the previous game, Miner was used half offense, half defense, but it was really established as a defensive card. And we have the Giant and the 3 Musketeers, and those 3 Musketeers are not being fireballed out, which I thought was fascinating. So if we look at this sequence right here, these 3 Musketeers are not getting fireballed. They're played up front here, but as we saw in the last game, I keep talking about the last game because it was so important about how this game was played. What Lince was doing was just, okay, anytime these 3 Musketeers came out, he was fireballing. This time he let it go. And it's in his hand. Now, he doesn't have the elixir at the moment. He will right now. If he did, he would have to pick between clearing the lane over here for this one Musketeer or getting rid of the 2 Musketeers over here. But he opts not to do that. And I think it's really fascinating. We're going to talk about when the fireball eventually gets used, because right now this would have been a time to do it instead of perhaps playing the Giant. This would have been the time to throw a fireball and get rid of the Musketeers. I think the guys also talked about this in the broadcast as well, is that what we saw in the previous game was that when Egor was using 3 Musketeers, Lince was throwing fireballs up, and that's a 6 elixir versus a 9 elixir trade. So it's obviously favoring Lince, because that's a good value. But do you want to do it in this situation here? And so we see in game number 3 that Lince says no. He's going to let the fireball go, and he's just going to run with a Giant and a Night Witch. I'm more worried about what's happening over here on the left side with these 2 Musketeers, and they get shots on the tower. Both of them get shots on the tower. So what happened on the right side? So we have this one Musketeer doing all she can. Here comes the delivery. Stabs the Giant, but that's not enough. And somehow this Musketeer just does enough to keep Egor in the lead. Now, if we look back at these 2 Musketeers that are here on the left side, I thought, yeah, maybe there was an opportunity to just fireball, because perhaps Lince has enough without having to use fireball to stop this push. But, I mean, he opts to go with skeletons. Getting one of these Musketeers to hit the tower was, I thought, was pretty heavy. But both of them got shots on the tower, and it's down to 10-35. And here comes Royal Hogs, Night Witch, and a Heal Spirit. And Egor is just eating up this tower with these Hogs and the 2 Musketeers. I think the Musketeers really set the pace for those Royal Hogs. And we still haven't seen the fireball yet. The miner gets in front of the hunter, which is really nice. And we have a half-healthy miner who gets shots on the tower. That's a really good answer by Lince. You know, despite what happened down here on the bottom, that's a really good answer. Because this looked like it was going to be, the tower was going to be gone right here. But for him to say, okay, you know what? Let's go. I have a giant right here. Here comes the hunter that's just going to blast this giant. But here, the miner gets in the way right there. That is really great for Lince. The delivery pushes the miner out instead of up. It pushes it out. So the miner is hitting the recruit. That was unbelievable. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, Egor doesn't have a spell to take down the tower. He doesn't have a fireball. Fireball would be 201. He doesn't have a log. He doesn't have a zap. So he has to rush to get to the tower. Now, perhaps he can just go to the left side and say, okay, I'm just going to flood the left side and then hope for the best. But he still opts to go to the right side. Now, that's also because Egor's forcing with the Royal Ghost. But to spend 4 elixir was really fascinating. And here comes the 3 Musketeers, and there's the first fireball of this game. And I think you had to use it there, because if you don't use it there, yes, those 2 Musketeers hit this giant here, but then you have a full healthy Musketeer. Again, no spell on Egor's side, so he has to get somebody to the tower. And then meanwhile, while this Musketeer's gone, the giant tries to get through. It doesn't. With the recruit and the hunter. Here comes Night Witch on the left side, and now it's a full commitment to the left side because you just have to make sure that nobody gets in front. And then there's the second fireball of the game. Gets rid of the hunter. The recruit drops in. That Night Witch is just hitting the recruit in the back, and here come the Royal Hogs, and Egor survives that last push by Lince. Lince tries to drop that miner there, and that ends up not being enough because of the hunter in the back. Let's take a look at that last sequence right here. So we have a giant and a Night Witch right together. This Ice Golem's trying to get in the way a little bit, but it gets pushed back. It's really that fireball right there that I thought was fascinating, because this hunter was just going to blast this giant off, and you have a bandit that's dashing. Meanwhile, you have a miner that doesn't get hit by the recruit by delivery, and this recruit comes out. This miner's free, and now we have an offensive miner. And I thought for sure that everybody was going to go down, but they didn't. They all went back to take care of the miner. What we saw in the last game was a King Tower activation because of a zap that was just perhaps 1 block off from where it should have been. Think about if there was a King Tower activation right here. There's no debate that this miner is taken care of far more easily, and this tower is a little bit more healthy. We're not talking in the 1,000, but it's definitely not 367. So that was the last chance by Lince, and it was just a matter of time because Egor said, okay, I have Royal Hogs. Somebody's going to get to the tower, please, and at least do 2 shots. And they didn't, which I thought was fascinating, but you have 2 bandits. They're in the way, a Royal Ghost, a hunter, and it was just too much. So really just a great contrast from game 2 to game 3. Both players, especially Egor, understanding, okay, this is what I did. This is the trades that I can and can't do. And it was really more about the Royal Hogs that were played early on, setting the tempo. And the 2 Musketeers that were played on the left side I think really set the tone for the rest of the game, because they were just not necessarily left alone, but the answer to those two Musketeers just wasn't enough. And it was bad that one of them got a shot on the tower, but both of them got shots on the tower, and that led it to just a little bit above 1,000 HP. Then the Royale Hogs come in and take it down to where it was just basically the towers it became a straw tower at that point. So if we look at the stats from Royale API and the grid and how it was played, we see the fireball usage. There were only 2 fireballs used. Number 1 was the first time, not the first time 3 Musketeers came out, but it was the first time that Lince used fireballs on the 3 Musketeers. And number 2 was to stop that hunter so that the giant could get free, which I thought was a fascinating play right there. Then we see 3 uses of the Royale Hogs all in the same place. I thought that was great. We see 2 deployments of the 3 Musketeers. I mean, if we look at how the previous game went, 9 fireballs. It was the true usage of a triple spell lineup. And then we could see Royale Hogs played here 6 times right at the bridge. 3 Musketeers 6 times. So definitely a change in how they were all played. All the cards were used. It ended up in Egor's favor, and Team Liquid is going to the postseason because of this win. Just a fascinating game. Just a fascinating series. Everybody's talking about could be one of the greatest series of all time in CRL history, CRL Clash Royale Esports history. I mean, it was fascinating to watch, fascinating to break down. I can't wait for playoffs. It's going to be fun. So I'm going to end the video right here. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.